Hi, you've tuned into Extra Healthy-ish. This is the big sister podcast to the one called Healthy-ish. Both of these podcasts are from Body+Soul, and we've designed them to give you that little bit extra oomph in your day. I'm not sure which part of Australia you're tuning in from. Maybe you're from Victoria or New South Wales or wherever you may be. This episode will hopefully resonate with you as Australia emerges from the pandemic. I mean, some of us will bounce back with our mental health intact. Others might find it a bit of a struggle. Dr. Adam Fraser is a peak performance researcher and author of The Third Space, and he's going to help you turn those feelings of languishing, you know, when you're feeling blah, you're stuck in a rut, well, he's going to help you turn them into flourishing. And he's going to talk to us about the importance of navigating work life and home life and setting them up so you can flourish in all parts of your life. Adam, thank you so much for coming on Extra Healthy-ish. Now, how do you stay extra healthy-ish in your life?
Oh, wow. That's a big question right up front.
I know. Let's take
Well, I mean, this is my job. Like, my job is looking at how do we improve our performance? How do we support our well-being? So probably the biggest thing for me is I practice regular recovery. Like, one of the things our research showed, we looked at burnout, and often people think burnout is, well, recovery is something we only do once we burn out, or recovery is we have to take a holiday or a break from work. What our research uncovered is the key to preventing burnout is short, regular, but consistent bursts of recovery. So this is something I incorporate in my life. And what it looks like is every day I do a relaxation app with my daughters. So before I read them a story, we do this app, which really gets us into a deep, relaxed state. And every week, I do the Shelley to Manly swim. So on a Sunday morning, I drive to Manly, do that swim, and I'm on my own. I'm not being bothered by anyone, and I'm just in the most beautiful environment. So for me, around my healthy-ish habits are that regular relaxation each day, and each week I do something that really makes me feel alive and sort of energizes me. That's what I do.
When you're in your flow. I love that. Recovery. We should all, I mean, it's just simple terminology.
Definitely.
Change.
Except in winter when it's cold.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I want to talk to you about, many of us have felt this lockdown languishing. It's a term that has been thrown about a lot. I want to talk about turning your lockdown languishing into post-lockdown thriving. And if you haven't been in lockdown, well, perhaps you're still feeling this sense of, it's this sense of blah, really. Can you quickly tell us why, so many of us might have felt this languishing feeling over the past few months?
Yeah, I mean, this is existing on multiple levels. What we're going through right now is something called surge capacity. So when we have a lot of uncertainty and fear, our brain goes onto high alert and starts to work harder and faster. And we often see this with a natural disaster. People's brains just kick up where they go into action. But with a fire or a flood, there's an end to it. The problem with what we're going through is we don't know what's going to happen. So we're on edge, and we're worried and uncertain, but with no end in sight. So one of the reasons why we're so tired is just that our resources have been depleted. And then throw in the fact that you have to homeschool kids if you've got them, which is some sort of cruel and unusual punishment for parents.
Yes, agree.
Do you know what I've noticed is that I energized by being in solitude. So I'll go off and do something on my own or go into nature. But I live with my wife, who's Italian, and my daughter, and I now have two daughters. So I'm surrounded by incredibly loud women. And I swear my children learnt to whisper inside a helicopter. Like, it's just, my environment's so noisy. And one of the things that's affecting me is I just don't get time out. I don't get alone time. And in fact, actually, a lot of working mothers that we interviewed, they said the commute home was the only alone time I got. So it was the only time that people weren't at me. And now that I'm working from home, I just never get that space. So there's many things that are causing this languishing.
Now, flourishing is, the antidote to languishing. What does it talk us through? What actually, you've set up the scene with the languishing. Talk us through what flourishing. What does it mean for a human being to flourish? And obviously, my next question is how do we link the two? But let's talk about flourishing first. Paint a picture for us. What does it look like if you, our listeners, are flourishing?
Yeah, I mean, we've mapped this out, and there's certain aspects that we need. The first is meaning and purpose in our life and in our work. So feeling like what we do matters, we make a contribution. The second one is solid functional relationships. Like we need connection, we need support. The third part of flourishing is practicing regular recovery where we look after ourselves and we take time out to calm ourselves and exercise and practice mindfulness. The fourth one is relates to that previous piece about being physically active. Like that's very important to us. And the last part of flourishing is something we call striving. And this is where we see ourselves evolve and get better and be courageous and see that we're improving and going somewhere. So they're the aspects of flourishing as defined by our research.
So then link the two for me. Where should we start? What are some strategies that can help us flourish? I mean, when you said striving, I was like, I love that word, but we seem to have lost this at the moment. We're losing that feeling of wanting to go forward. Where are our goals? How are we moving? So how can we, particularly when we're feeling overwhelmed and fed up, and especially as mothers with not much space, what are some strategies that can help ourselves to flourish and thrive? Yeah,
look, if you're deep in languishing where you're really struggling, I think the two to focus on is that practicing of regular recovery. And what this means is when we think of recovery, we think, I'll go on a holiday, I'll take time off work. But start to think about, well, what are the micro bits of recovery I do? Like, what do I do each day to help me deal with the stress? What do I do each week that energizes me? Each month, do I have a day where I kind of check out and I don't have to achieve anything? And our research showed that these three layers are so important. So for people who are struggling, I'd just say every day do like a relaxation app on your phone that just walks you through a little relaxation piece. Because what we want to do is that ability to calm ourselves. Each week I'd be thinking about, well, what do I do to fill up my cup? If you think about parents at the moment, they're just giving so much. They're working, they're homeschooling their kids. They might have elderly parents they're looking after. And this weekly thing is, well, what do I do to energize me? What do I do to fill up my cup? Like, do I take time to actually nurture myself? And I think the other piece that you talked about is with the striving is take time to reflect on what you've achieved, how you've gotten better. Like even thinking about how we've handled this challenge, like we've done remarkably well to adapt and evolve. So I'd say for people who are languishing to practice that self-recovery, but secondly, to just take time each day to think about, I achieved that or I did that.
Actually, that's a good point because I don't think we just probably appreciate ourselves enough for getting through what we've got through. I mean, and also each other. Like just saying, well done, everyone, well done.
Yeah, I think we've done remarkably well. And I talk to organisations and they go, yeah, it's hard. But at the same time, I'm amazed at what we've done or we've innovated or we've evolved. So it's not being the Pollyanna optimist, but it's taking time to go, yeah, I am actually coping with that okay, or I have achieved amazing things.
We'll be back after this. Now, what about if we still work from home? I mean, this is going to be, the new normal in the workplace is going to be at, sometime in the office, sometime at home. What measures can we implement here to perhaps safeguard our health and well-being, and also to, if the work-life boundaries, they can easily blur, even if your kids are at school or if they're going back to school. What should we do to, get that balance, a bit, do I say right or a bit, what's the word?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a very important factor. If you look at the Allianz research around, healthy workplaces, what they showed is 42% of Australians said that now I'm working from home, I find it harder to separate work and home. And what people are saying is I feel like I'm always on and I never turn off or disconnect from work. So I'm never really at work or I'm never really in my personal life. So a concept we developed a number of years ago is called the third space. And it's basically, how do we transition from work mode to home mode? Because too often we transition from work to home, but we're still in that mentality. And we're not present. We're worried about work. And we're thinking about this, and we go, oh, I should send that email. And the ability to switch off from work and disconnect and be present in your whether it's you live with others or whether you live on your own, but your ability to be present in your personal life is critical. Number one, it helps you recover and relax from the day. But number two, it helps you invest in your relationships and create connection. So what I'd say, people moving forward, we're probably going to be a hybrid model. That ability to transition from work mode to home mode, whether we're commuting or whether we're coming from the kitchen table, is critical moving forward.
Yeah, what are some other tips? I mean, flourishing is obviously about flourishing in work life, but how else can we flourish in that personal life if we're just, is it about just in that third space resetting yourself and saying, right, I want to be present with my kids, or I want to do this with my partner, or whatever it may be?
Yeah, I mean, we did some research with Deakin University to show the best transition from work to home has three parts. The first part is the reflection. And as we're finishing work, reflecting on the day. Now, most people, when they reflect, they think about all the bad stuff that happened. I didn't finish that. Oh, when am I going to fit that in? But what we got people to do was reflect in a healthy way, looking at, well, what did I achieve? What did I get done today? How did I improve? And that helps us take a more optimistic mindset forward. So reflect is the first piece. Rest is the second step, and that is anything that makes you present. So it could be Sudoku on the bus, doing a relaxation app on your phone, but it's just about calming your brain. And the last phase is called reset, and this is where we think about, how do I want to show up? So if I live with others, what sort of impact do I want to have on my family? If I live on my own, how do I want to turn off from work, or how do I want to be social? So that reflect, rest, reset, those three critical steps in that transition from work to home. And I'd encourage people to start practicing these because they're incredibly effective.
Oh, I like those. I'm just making notes about that now. I like that. The 3 R's. So, well, that's the great example of how we can flourish in our personal life. What about, how can we safeguard ourselves from languishing once again? I mean, I feel like, well, we're coming to you from Sydney, listeners, but there's this sense of, optimism that we're getting out, we're opening up, and I'm sure Victoria's going to feel it. And even perhaps when our borders come down, the rest of Australia will all intermingle again. I feel like we might go through another dip where we think, oh, okay, this is the new normal. How can we safeguard ourselves from languishing once again down the track?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the self-care and self-compassion is a really important piece here, is that we've got to manage our expectations of, sometimes we go through something and we go, it's going to be awesome. Like at the start of 2021, everyone went, oh, thank God, new year, it's going to be great. We're going to say goodbye to COVID and all that terrible stuff. And
little did we know.
Our expectation of what that year was, that light at the end of the tunnel was a train. And I think just as we come out of lockdown and transition into whatever the future looks like, just be careful that we don't have too high expectation on ourselves to feel amazing and be positive all the time. There are going to be hard days, and that transition is going to be difficult. And sometimes, rather than beating ourselves up for feeling a certain way, I think it's that self-compassion to kind of go, I'm finding it hard today, or I'm finding this difficult, and not beating ourselves up over that.
Yeah, that's some good tips there. Adam, thank you so much for coming on Extra Healthy-ish.
My pleasure.
Well, there you have it, the 3 R's in your third space. That is how you can flourish in all areas of your life. Just make use of that third space between work and between, family life or your other life. If you want more info from Adam, his book is called The Third Space. If you want more info from us at Body and Soul, make sure you download other episodes of this podcast. We launch those every morning, Monday to Thursday, or jump online, bodyandsoul.com.au, or follow us on Instagram or Facebook. Thanks again for listening to my chat with Adam. If you have a moment, we'd be so grateful if you could rate, review and subscribe to this podcast. And until tomorrow, stay extra healthy-ish.